On a spring day, Grand Prince Vladimir, known for his hostility to Christianity, ordered the destruction of all pagan idols in Russian cities. Led by the priests, he sent his people to be baptized in the rivers around the city. The decision had been made. Russia would become Christian with all its people and nobles. Vladimir did not want any remnants of pagan religions to continue to exist on his land. He was determined on the path he had chosen for his country. So, why did Vladimir, who was known for his hostility to Christianity and his support for pagan beliefs, change his mind? What did this mean for the peoples living on Russian soil? And why was Christianity chosen over Islam and Judaism? In order to find answers to all these questions, we need to understand the story of a warrior father and 3 sons who shared the country after his death. Vladimir's father, Svyatoslav, was a leader who stood out for his warrior character and devotion to pagan beliefs. His father, Igor, had been murdered when he was just a child. His mother, Olga, on the other hand, avenged her husband. She ensured that her son grew up and ascended to the throne. In other words, Svyatoslav's childhood years were spent in a revenge-oriented power struggle. It was possible to see the traces of this struggle throughout his life. Most of his life was spent in wars. Although his mother, Olga, who was known for her wisdom, converted to Christianity, Svyatoslav never became a Christian. Some churches did exist in Russia during his time, but the dominant belief was paganism. There were Christians among the people and the nobility, but Christianity was not allowed to overtake pagan beliefs. There were Christians who even participated in battles on his side from time to time. However, he and many of his noble friends openly embraced pagan beliefs, and the Russian leader had no desire for his people to become Christians. When Svyatoslav was killed as a result of a Pecheneg raid, the Russian state was suddenly left without a head. Russian lands were now ruled by 3 sons of Svyatoslav. The first of the sons, Yaropolk, controlled the Principality of Kiev. The lands he held were richer than his brother's lands, both agriculturally and commercially. Yaropolk's wife was a Christian and a former prisoner of war. Yaropolk's father, Svyatoslav, had captured this young woman during the Bulgarian expedition and gifted her to his son on the grounds that she was beautiful. Young Yaropolk, who had learned Christianity from his wife, respected this religion. It is an interesting detail that a fierce pagan warrior like Svyatoslav gave him a woman who would bring his own son closer to Christianity. Of course, he could not have foreseen the consequences of this. Svyatoslav's second son, Oleg, controlled the lands of the Drevlians. These lands were important in terms of uniting the north and south. There was a certain rivalry between Oleg and Yaropolk's friend Svenelt. Svenelt had long wanted to rule over the lands of the Drevlians. That's why he was jealous of Oleg. Among the 3 sons, Vladimir, who resembled his father most in mentality, ruled Novgorod, one of the oldest cities of the dynasty. A fierce warrior like his father, Vladimir disliked the spread of Christianity in the southern lands under Yaropolk's rule. He believed in the gods of his own ancestors and made clear his devotion to ancient beliefs. There was a serious tension between the 3 brothers. Oleg was having a conflict of interest with Yaropolk's friend Svenelt. Vladimir, on the other hand, was dissatisfied with the fact that Christianity under Yaropolk's patronage was beginning to take precedence over the beliefs of his ancestors. The event that caused this tension to peak and turn into a war was a hunting accident. According to the chronicle, The Tale of Bygone Years, one of the primary sources of Russian history, Svenel's son Luke went hunting in the Drevlian lands. One day while hunting, he was accidentally killed by Oleg, who had been out hunting on his own land. How this event actually happened is of course very debatable. We don't know if this was really an accident, but we can say that it was a breaking point. After this incident, Svenelt began to insist to Yaropolk that his son be avenged. Although Yaropolk did not want to pull a sword against his own brother, there was a situation that needed to be intervened. If Svenat's desire for vengeance remained unrequited, a rebellion could begin. Not wanting to cause a strife in his lands, Yaropolk gathered his army and marched against Oleg. Oleg died during the battle in 976. Thus, the Drevlin lands under his control also came under Yaropolk's rule. Watching the events in the south with concern, Vladimir saw the murder of his brother and the seizure of his lands as a threat to himself. He left Novgorod and fled to Scandinavia. Yaropolk became the sole ruler of the Russian lands. Christianity began to spread in Russia under his rule. However, the rule of the Christians' friend Yaropolk would not last long. Vladimir, who had fled to Scandinavia, gathered Viking warriors with him and returned to Novgorod. His first goal was to capture Polotsk, which was on the road to Smolensk. This castle was ruled by a noble of Scandinavian origin named Rogvolod. Vladimir wanted to marry Rogneda, daughter of Rogvolod. He wanted to seize the castle without the use of force, through an alliance with a marriage. This request of Vladimir became the source of an epic story mentioned in historical sources. According to this story, Rogvolod asked his daughter if she wanted to marry Vladimir. Rogneda replied, "I would rather marry her brother Yaropolk than marry him." Hearing this answer, Vladimir seized the castle with his great army. He killed Rogvolod and his two sons. He made his daughter Rogneda his wife by force. After capturing Polotsk, Vladimir, who overcame the obstacles in the north one by one, moved towards the south. Yaropolk did not know what to do. He could challenge Vladimir on the battlefield, but the strength of the Vikings in Vladimir's army made this option too risky. After this moment of indecision, he decided to start peace talks with Vladimir. Not wanting to give his brother an opportunity after what had happened, Vladimir had his warriors kill his brother, who was unprotected, during one of the peace talk meetings. With Yaropolk's death, Vladimir was now much stronger. Together with the Vikings, he captured Kiev in the year 976. He was now the sole ruler of the Russian lands. Having seized power with the help of pagan Viking warriors, Vladimir realized that he might have put himself in a difficult position by relying too much on his northern friends. The vast majority of Vikings were pagans, and many of them particularly hated Christianity. Vladimir also did not like the Christians, but he did not want to put them under excessive pressure and cause a religious civil war. Viking warriors, on the other hand, were trying to dominate Vladimir by encouraging him to act against the Christians. Not only that, they were disturbing the people of the city with their excessive behavior and rude attitude. Vladimir was experiencing great difficulties because of the Vikings he brought from Scandinavia with his own hands. The tension caused by the religious uncertainty of his rule was now quite intense. Apart from the religious problems that Vladimir had in his own lands, the issue also had an international dimension. One by one, the lands around the Russian state became either Muslim or Christian. The Russians, who insisted on paganism instead of choosing one of the two religions, were isolating themselves in the international arena. This move by Vladimir in the field of international politics was of great importance, especially because of his relations with the two states. One of these states was the Volga-Bulgar Khanate. The Volga Bulgars were in close contact with the people and the state of Vladimir, sometimes by fighting with the Russians and sometimes by trading with them. The Volga Bulgars were Muslims, and by converting to their religion, an alliance could be formed that could really be beneficial. Moreover, if Vladimir became a Muslim, he could find the support of the caliphate among many Islamic states. According to the Russian chronicle The Tale of Bygone Years, the Volga Bulgars sent a delegation to Vladimir to convert him to Islam. However, although Vladimir listened to the words of this delegation, he did not accept the invitation to Islam. There were different reasons for this. One of these reasons was the minority of Muslims in Russian lands. The followers of Vladimir's time, both pagan and Christian, enjoyed a certain power and popularity in and around Kiev. But Muslims did not have such a population and activity in Russian territory. Before talking about Vladimir's second and third options, it should be said that one more detail about this issue has been mentioned by some historians. This detail is about the drinking habits of the Russians. According to this theory, knowing that his people like to drink, Vladimir did not want to convert to a religion that would prohibit alcohol. Lev Gumilyev, a famous Russian historian, partially supported this theory. According to him, Vladimir wanted alcohol to be free, especially since he knew the nobility's adherence to drinking traditions. Although the views of Lev Gumilyev are remarkable, there is also an opinion that suggests that this issue was not so important. According to this view, the decision that Vladimir had to make was a matter of life and death for the Russian state in the international field. It was unlikely that a determined and ambitious leader like him would have taken people's beverage culture seriously on such an issue that would affect international relations. Vladimir was dissatisfied with the Volga Bulgars' invitation to religion and turned to other options. The second option before Vladimir was Judaism. During his lifetime, Judaism did not have a state of its own. Being Jewish was seen as a weakness internationally. In addition, the Russians who had fought with the Jewish Khazar Khanate for many years had a bad memory of Judaism. He did not want himself or his people to be Jewish. The third option was Christianity, with which the Russians became involved, especially as a result of their relations with the Byzantine Empire. Relations with the Byzantine Empire were very important for the Russians since the first times of the Russian state. Although his father Sviatoslav had fought Byzantium before, Vladimir was aware of the long-term benefits of gaining imperial favor for his state. He started to look at Christianity a little more warmly, but he could not decide exactly what to do. As Vladimir tried to make up his mind, the turmoil that arose in the territory of the Byzantine Empire presented him with a new opportunity. Revolts began to break out in the Anatolian lands of the young Emperor Basil. The emperor asked the Russian ruler Vladimir for help. According to the agreement between them, Vladimir was to assist the emperor with his Viking warriors. In return, the emperor would make a serious payment and give his sister Anna to Vladimir as a wife. Emperor Basil stipulated that Vladimir should be baptized and become a Christian in order for this agreement to be valid. Marrying the daughter of an imperial family was an amazing opportunity for Vladimir. He accepted this offer and therefore became a Christian. He was baptized in the February of the year 988. And as a Christian name, he took the name Basil in honor of the emperor. He sent Viking warriors as promised to the emperor. The number of fighters he sent is estimated to be around 6,000. By sending the Vikings in his own land to another state, he got rid of the unrest caused by them. Vikings enjoyed fighting and collecting spoils of war. Heeding Vladimir's orders without any trouble, they went to the emperor's side and began to fight alongside him. Vladimir, the Vikings, and the emperor were happy with the situation. Thanks to the warriors of Vladimir, Emperor Basil crushed the rebellion in Anatolia. He was safe now. As he began to feel safe, he began to avoid sending his sister Anna to Vladimir as a bride. He thought that he no longer needed Vladimir. In the Byzantine palace, marriage of dynastic women with foreigners was not welcomed. It was forbidden according to some traditions. Basil wanted to stick to these traditions at the cost of breaking his promise. Another promise that Basil did not keep was about the independence of the Russian Church. Vladimir had become a Christian with the guarantee that the Russian Church would be independent and that empire would not interfere in his affairs through the Church. However, the Church in Constantinople still did not make a statement recognizing the independence of the Russian Church. Basil thought he could control the situation by delaying or ignoring his promises, but Vladimir was not to be tricked like this. The emperor had to learn this the hard way. Unable to get what he wanted, Vladimir invaded the Byzantine lands in Crimea in the year 988. In July of the same year, the city of Chersonesus fell. Together with Chersonesus, Vladimir took control of the Byzantine Patriarchate in Crimea. From this point on, he could take over all the religious institutions in Crimea. Emperor Basil could not accept the passing of the cities and patriarchs in Crimea under Vladimir's control. He had to let his sister marry. Having married a woman from the imperial family, Vladimir got what he wanted. Further warfare with the Byzantine Empire would not benefit him, but harm him. The primary reason why he wanted to marry Anna was to establish an unbreakable bond with the Byzantine administration. After marrying the emperor's sister, he presented Chersonesus as a wedding gift to his new brother-in-law, the emperor. The bishops and priests of Crimea were culturally and theologically advanced, as they had long lived under Christian rule. In order to spread the religion of Christianity in the Russian lands, Vladimir asked the religious institutions in Chersonesus and Crimea to send clergy and religious books to Russian lands. Returning to Kiev, Vladimir instructed all the people to go to the nearby rivers and be baptized under the leadership of the clergy. He also ordered the demolition of all pagan idols and the construction of new churches to replace old pagan temples. He also sent messengers to other cities in Russian territory, carrying instructions with similar orders. He wished that not only Kiev, but his whole country would be Christian. Vladimir's wish to become a Christian was accepted throughout the country. Despite the fact that many pagan citizens and nobles lived in the Russian lands, no serious problems arose, except for a small rebellion in Novgorod. This rebellion was quickly suppressed. There were several important reasons why the pagans did not object to Vladimir's decision. The first of these reasons was the venerable memory of Vladimir's grandmother, Olga. She had freed her country from the clutches of civil war after her husband was murdered. He protected and raised Russia's greatest warrior, Svyatoslav. Seen as a wise hero, Olga was known to be a Christian. It can't be such a bad thing to follow in the footsteps of Russia's wise mother, they thought. In their opinion, if Christianity were a bad thing, Olga wouldn't be a Christian. Their respect for her made them listen to her grandson. Another reason was related to the number of Christians living in Russian territory. Yes, the dominant belief system was paganism until Vladimir became a Christian. However, many Christians lived among the common people and the nobility. In other words, there was a risk that the pagans would lose a civil war if they rebelled, especially when Vladimir was now on the side of the Christians. Also, the pagans had lost a lot of power since Vladimir sent Viking warriors to help the Byzantine emperor. Pagan supporters, who had intimidated the Christians with the power of the Vikings, had no cards to play. They bowed to Vladimir's orders. To understand the final reason why the pagans did not oppose the mass baptism of the country, it is necessary to understand the mentality of the nobles who had a serious say in Vladimir's country. There were Christian states in the west of Russia and Muslim Volga Bulgars in the east. On the other hand, the borders they shared with the Byzantine Empire, the greatest Christian empire in the world, created a sensitive international environment. The religious uncertainty in the Russian state had to be resolved as soon as possible. A step to get closer to the Byzantine Empire seemed perfectly logical. Moreover, Vladimir had secured the independence of the Russian Church, at least for his own time. In other words, the Byzantine Empire would not be able to interfere in their affairs through the Church. The nobles, both pagan and Christian, supported Vladimir's actions, finding it logical in terms of their state's international standing. This has been the story of how Vladimir, the greatest supporter of the pagan beliefs and ancestral religion in the Russian lands, led his country Christianity. From this point on, Russia became one of the leading centers of Eastern Christianity. Today, it is considered as one of the most important focal points of Slavic Orthodox Christianity. The traces of the actions Vladimir took hundreds of years ago are still visible.